would you do if the person you were dating turned out to be a monster? And not figuratively, but literally. Well, that's what happened to a woman back in 1999. In Fate magazine issue 728, published in 2015, there is a story sent from a woman named Kelly Ann Walker, in which she details a very bizarre experience she had with a man she was dating. An experience that ranks up there as one of the creepier ones I've read, as it suggests that the visitors are already here, living among us. The story began in 1999. Kelly Ann Walker, a 35-year-old single mother, was living alone with her young son when she began dating a man named Sam, whom she had met through her social circle. They both frequented the same parties and restaurants, and Kelly had come to know him as a bit of a player, a person who liked to live on the edge. He liked to drink, he liked to party, he liked to take risks. He was your typical bad boy, but he had a charm that drew people to him, Kelly noted. Before long, the two began seeing each other on a more serious basis, and he eventually became a major part of her life. At the time, she was not much interested in the paranormal. She had a vague idea of what ETs might look like from books, movies, and popular culture, but she was not familiar with the more outlandish aspects of the phenomenon. It just didn't interest her, especially since she had a young son to raise. The notion that a race of beings might be disguising themselves as humans and living amongst the human race never occurred to her. It was just too absurd. Things would change, however, following a late-night visit from Sam. It was just an average night. I awoke to Sam's signature tap on my bedroom window and the sound of the cab pulling away. I opened the window and he climbed inside. He had been at the bar all night and had been drinking pretty heavily, but was still charming and quite affectionate. Sometime in the heat of passion, he became something else entirely, and my perspective on the world changed completely. Moonlight was streaming through the window, so there was plenty of light with which to see. I looked up at his face, and one moment he was Sam, and the next moment he was something that wasn't human. The structure of his face changed completely. His eyes became bigger and farther apart. His nose and mouth lengthened into what I can only describe as a snout. His nose flattened and widened, and his lips almost disappeared into a slit. His neck became longer, the muscles more defined, and his shoulders seemed to widen when he lifted his head back. Sam's shoulder-length dark hair was suddenly gone. It was replaced by shiny scales of different color patterns that covered his entire body. His skin was suddenly cold to the touch. He reminded me of the velociraptor in Jurassic Park, but with a shorter snout. According to Kelly, the transformation lasted only a few seconds, and then suddenly he was Sam again. He was human again. Feeling fear and confusion, I caught my breath and pushed him away from me. My mind was trying to figure out what my eyes had just seen, but it was all so strange and happened so fast. Within seconds, he had shifted from human to non-human and back to human right in front of me, and it was a little more than my brain could handle. He asked me what was wrong, and all I could say was that I thought I had seen something strange, but I couldn't describe what it was. I blamed it on the moonlight, or on my being tired, tried to convince myself that I really had not just seen Sam become another creature. Sam teased her lightly about things that go bump in the night, before rolling over and falling asleep almost instantly. As I lay there beside him, I looked at him carefully. I listened to his breathing and watched him fall deeper into sleep. I touched him and his skin felt warm again. It was his smooth skin I was feeling, not the cold scales that had been there moments before. My mind was having a horrible time trying to sort out what had just happened. I tried talking myself into believing that it was just a trick of the light, that my overactive imagination combined with my lack of sleep and the moonlight caused me to see something that wasn't there. I knew, deep inside, that what I had seen was real. I knew with every ounce of my being that I had seen something out of this world happen in front of me, and trying to reason it away wasn't working. I was afraid to close my eyes. Wide awake with adrenaline pumping through her system, Kelly carefully slipped out of the bedroom. She sat in the living room for a while in a state of shock. She eventually fell asleep on the couch and woke in the morning to the sound of Sam getting out of bed. When he came into the living room, Kelly recalled that he seemed upset that he found her on the couch. She jokingly blamed it on him taking up too much of the bed, an issue that they had laughed about previously, and he seemed to buy it. In the back of my mind, I couldn't let go of what I watched him become. I didn't want him to touch me, but at the same time he was still the man that had climbed through my bedroom window many times before without any incident. The confusion I felt was overwhelming. I know he could tell that I was uncomfortable, but I don't think he realized that he had shifted in front of me. Kelly began giving Sam the cold shoulder, and eventually the two stopped seeing each other. There were no more midnight visits through her bedroom window, and Kelly did whatever she could to avoid him in social situations. I didn't feel safe when Sam was around, she noted. One curious detail, in the months and years that followed, Sam would often show up in her dreams. They were always very intimate in nature, and his face was always very close to hers, too close. Not once, however, did she see him transforming in her dreams. He was always in human form. He was always normal. She soon stopped seeing him around town until a chance encounter some 14 years later in a grocery store. She was waiting in a checkout line when he approached her. Sam told her that she looked great. He then asked her a number of questions, like if she was dating anyone, if she was still in the same line of work, and he asked how her son was doing. When she told him of her son's success in school and the profession he was in, she noticed that his reaction seemed genuine. Sam informed Kelly that he was now making his living in the casinos as a professional poker player. The meeting was unexpected and very uncomfortable for me. Sam seemed to take pleasure in my uneasiness. I gathered my grocery bags and quickly made my goodbyes, not letting him touch me, and not looking back when I left. I was relieved to be away from him. For a long time, Kelly told nobody, not even her son. She thought that she might be losing her mind until she observed a program discussing reptile-like shapeshifters. It was at this moment that she began to understand that she wasn't the only person who had such an experience. Other people, she discovered, had reported the same thing, of being alone with someone and seeing them, briefly, transform into something else. She researched the topic further and began to accept that what happened to her was real. It wasn't a trick of the light or her imagination. It was real. If I hadn't seen Sam's transformation happen in front of my eyes, I never would have believed that something like that was possible. For many years, Kelly pondered the various aspects of that night, the creature, the transformation. She wondered exactly what Sam was, and what factors might have come into play to allow her to see his true form. Maybe his guard was down because he had been drinking. Maybe he lost control over his form for a moment because we were being intimate. Possibly it was a combination of both that distracted him enough to lose the control it must take to maintain the appearance of being human. I can't even imagine how much energy it takes to keep up that kind of facade. A husband and wife are awoken 2 nights in a row by strange reports coming over their police scanner. What they heard left not only them scratching their heads, but everyone else as well. It was Saturday, September 15, 1979, 4 a.m. A married couple were asleep in their Heartland, Wisconsin home when their police scanner suddenly crackled to life. The couple both enjoyed having the scanner on at night, and so they both, now awake, laid in bed listening as the report came across. It was a strange one. Apparently, a sheriff's squad had been dispatched to the intersection of Highway 83 and either Highway 18 or Highway 16, they weren't quite sure, to investigate some mysterious lights. The lights were described as red and blue, and hanging around over the intersection. The couple thought it odd, but they put it out of their mind and went back to sleep. However, nothing was going to prepare them for what they heard the very next night, Sunday, September 16. At around 3:14 a.m., their police scanner crackled to life again. It was the hospital frequency of the scanner. Again, the couple found themselves awake, listening. There seemed to be a frantic exchange between an ambulance attendant and a woman, probably a nurse, working at the Economock Memorial Hospital. "We're bringing in 2 men who were hurt by a spacecraft and who won't give up the pictures they took," the paramedic could be heard to say. "Is this some kind of trick?" the nurse asked, apparently in disbelief. "No, we're in your driveway right now," the attendant told her. To which she replied, "Okay, I'll open up the back garage door and let you in the emergency room." The couple noted that the ambulance attendant had mentioned that one of the men had a possible concussion, while the other was suffering from back injuries. The men had told the ambulance attendant that they had sustained their injuries after an encounter with a spacecraft, one which they somehow ended up photographing. The husband and wife were so shocked by this report that they immediately went about trying to figure out what was going on. That morning they contacted John Engelbert, a writer for the Waukesha Freeman newspaper, to see if he could find out anything about the bizarre reports that they had heard over their scanner. Engelbert spoke to the couple, whom he found to be sane, rational, and completely sober. He, with the couple's help, reached out to the police and the hospital and were surprised to find nothing. There was no radioed report of an accident leading up to the arrival of the ambulance. The sheriff's department was checked, nothing. The emergency medical technician ambulance service operated by the Economock Fire Department was checked, and nothing. A private ambulance service operating out of Okauchee was checked, nothing. The Economock Police Department was checked, nothing. Oddest of all, there was no records in the logs of the Economock Memorial Hospital or the Waukesha Memorial Hospital. Economock Assistant Administrator James Rocca said nothing could be found in their logs that resembled the incident described. Waukesha Hospital President Donald W. Funkelstein also found nothing when he searched, and it's something that would be remembered and talked about, he told them. Upon looking into the Saturday morning mysterious lights report, Engelbert and the couple did manage to actually find something. Sadly, there was no record at the sheriff's department of a squad being sent to investigate red and blue lights at the highway intersection, but one of the officers recalled hearing something. Police Chief Leonard Shack of Economock questioned Corporal John Savens, and Savens actually remembered hearing that a squad had been dispatched to investigate some strange lights, but he heard nothing more about it. None of the staff at the hospital or the ambulance services could recall anything of the incident. It was like it never happened, but the couple were certain that it did. They were certain that what they heard over the course of 2 nights was real, yet they could find nothing to verify it beyond one officer's vague recollection. Engelbert wrote of the bizarre incident in the September 17, 1979 edition of the Freeman newspaper, in an article titled "Strange Nighttime Events Untraceable." While it is entirely possible that over the course of 2 nights, somebody had interfered with the police frequency to pull a prank, but it seems unlikely, as the couple were quite familiar with police scanners and would have almost certainly recognized somebody pulling a prank. They were quite sure that they had heard police being dispatched to investigate some strange lights, which was kind of confirmed by one of the officers, followed by an apparent report the very next night in which 2 men were injured after an encounter with a, quote, spacecraft, a spacecraft that they somehow managed to photograph. "We're bringing in 2 men who were hurt by a spacecraft and who won't give up the pictures they took." This is what the married couple heard the ambulance attendant say. Apparently this is an exact quote. It's kind of a strange thing for an attendant to say, don't you think? Who won't give up the pictures they took. Why would an ambulance attendant care if a couple of injured men wanted to hand over their pictures? Wouldn't getting them treated be the most important thing on his mind? Not some blurry pictures of some UFOs. Unless, of course, the pictures weren't blurry. Unless these 2 men managed to photograph something that somebody didn't want getting out. Then why take them to the hospital at all? Certainly some type of cover-up must have been carried out for the hospital and ambulance attendants to have no record of them. But why go to all that trouble? Of course, this leads me to consider another possibility, one that I might not have ever considered had I not read about the Peter Williamson incident. What if the couple actually did hear a report in which two men encountered and were injured by a spacecraft that they managed to photograph? What if ambulance attendants actually did take them to the Economock Memorial Hospital, where a nurse allowed them access to the emergency room via the garage? What if this all happened, but just not here, not in our world? What if the couple's scanner, somehow, in some way, tapped into another place, a world like ours? And what if in that other place, people are having their own ET encounters that are just as frightening and just as dangerous as they are here? Might this also explain why there were no records and only a vague recollection from a single officer?